Hi, Adam here, and welcome back to Create+Activate, episode 4, where we'll be inviting in our head of digital PR, Alex Hickson, to the studio very soon. But if you are watching on video, you'll be able to see that we are in a different studio space. We're actually now in our own office in Manchester city centre. So you might hear the odd train go by, or the odd police siren, or the odd person walking behind us. That's because we're in our own space now. Obviously, we were in a hired space previously when we set the podcast up. We've been away, spent some time on setting this up, and it's very exciting, isn't it?
Indeed. And today, even more exciting, Alex is going to be talking to us. He's really engaging. He knows absolutely everything about digital PR.
You're really putting him under pressure here. Yeah. He knows everything.
Pretty much everything there is to need to know about it. So it's going to be a great podcast.
Like, why is that? Who's going to read about that? That seems so convoluted. But now there's a massive thirst. There's a whole niche. There's publications that have sprung up in the past couple of years which would cover that story because it's super relevant and it's a super innovative way of doing something. But actually, if you're looking at like cold hard cash, it makes sense financially to do both of those things. But not blowing my own trumpet or anything.
The best digital PR campaign ever. Well, I did this thing a few months ago.
Literally.
Up, Alex, how you doing, mate?
I'm all right, mate. How are you?
Not bad, thank you. Not bad. Welcome. We're the first guest in our brand new studio.
It's an honour.
Mm-hmm. It should be. It should be an honour.
Do you know what? We were in your neck of the woods last week as well, and no one was there. Well, apart from yourself.
Yeah.
Kath said to me.
He knew we were there. He was also there.
Then he left very quickly.
Scared the shit out of me when you walked in.
Do you know what? I was laughing because Kath said, I'm in Manchester. I'm like, you avoided me, Kath. You avoided me.
But yeah, we're obviously here today to talk about the importance of digital PR and the importance of getting ROI from digital PR as well.
Mm-hmm. So have you always worked in agency, Alex?
Yeah, I have actually. I think it's just because you cut your teeth in an agency so much quicker. And I think I've been in digital PR now for about 5 or 6 years. But if you say to me now, oh, is it the same as what it was 5 years ago? No. Is it the same as what it was 2 years ago? No, not a chance. Yeah. And it's just because I think, obviously, like marketing evolves anyway, doesn't it? But I think digital PR as like a service has evolved so much. And I think being an agency, that's how you kind of evolve with it. Like,
dead interesting because I went agency and then I went client side and then back to running an agency. And one of the things that my old FD would always say to me, if we needed to save any money or anything like that, he'd always come at me and say, right, what channels are you going to cut? And his first go-to would always be PR.
Yeah.
What do you think of that? And speak to me a little bit about that. And
I feel,
is it a mistake or can you switch it on and off?
I think it is usually a mistake. I think I can understand why it is the service that was always cut. I think when you look at the kind of marketing mix and the services, especially from like performance marketing that you'd be employing, it's really easy to see ROI on like paid media. It's really easy to see ROI on paid social, even organic social, with the kind of metrics and analytics that you can track. When it comes to PR, especially what most people would consider like traditional PR. So if we're doing some big stunt for a client on Market Street and, you know, we're doing a big execution that's out of home and we make a big splash about it, we get loads of people to talk about it, we're getting coverage in the paper, online, across social, we know that's good. But then if you turn around and said, I'll say, what impact has that had on the business? It's really difficult to like join those dots. So I think that's probably one of the reasons why. But I think it, as a practice, has evolved so much more that like those people talk about having traditional PR and digital PR as two completely separate services, where I think over the course of the past decade, 5 years, however long, they are just intrinsically linked now, that there's tactics from both that can ladder up to mean that you can execute really, really good PR activity and then measure the results of it afterwards as well.
Do you think then that digital PR would ever be a direct response channel?
Potentially, yeah. I think what's really interesting about it is that you can... But I think COVID as well has been a massive game changer in the industry, because the world lives increasingly online anyway. And I think being in lockdown and since the back of COVID, we consume content, media, news, everything online. So there's always going to be a place for like out of home, TV, all those different channels. But you want to be able to tell a story, tell a narrative. And if you use digital PR tactics, you can do that online anyway in a way that doesn't feel super salesy or super advertorial to a group of people. So I think that it is becoming more and more of like a direct response, especially for brands that might not be sat on the kind of budget that, you know, they can just go and drop a TV ad or whatever it might be. Like there's a lot of ways you can have really, really good, meaningful results with different digital PR tactics.
I was just going to ask, just kind of going back a little bit to you and kind of why did you get into digital PR? What kind of attracted you to it in the first place?
Massive fluke. And I feel like honestly, everyone you ask this who probably is in digital PR will say exactly the same. Like I did politics at uni. And thought I was going to be a politician. Very quickly was like, no, I'm not going to be a politician. But then was really interested in like the comms of it and just optics and all that kind of media framing that I guess comes with politics and stuff. Then got a grad job in recruitment, which I absolutely hated. But I ended up working with businesses more on like their brand perception because there was loads of businesses that were like, oh, we're struggling to recruit. And I was like, it's because people don't have a good perception of your brand and all this kind of thing. Realised that was kind of what I wanted to do. Went back and did a master's that had like PR and marketing in it. And then just started to do like internships and stuff. So I did PR for like a festival company and like a festival near home. That was really good. But then kind of just fell into my first digital PR job, but then actually really enjoyed the fact that I was learning so much more that I didn't already know about like press or media, about like all the organic side, the SEO side. And it kind of to me just made so much sense. Like, yeah, of course you'd be working towards improving the rankings of your website as well as making that brand splash, because I don't always just go to Google with a brand name in mind. I'm going, oh, you know, where's the best size jeans to get? Or like, what's the best, I don't know, like new bed to get for my house or whatever, and you want your brand to then therefore appear. So it all just kind of made a lot of sense in my head as like why brands would do it, and it just sort of went from there really.
I always laugh and think we'd be the best people ever at a pub quiz, because you end up having to know so much about every business you ever work with. It's really interesting when you talked then about organic visibility and the role that digital PR plays in that. Just wonder if you could just speak a little bit more about that to us.
Yeah. So when you consider how Google ranks any website, there's loads and loads of different factors. So there's a lot of like technical factors. So it will take into account like the user experience, site speed, load speed, things like that. It will also look at the content on that website, which is kind of how it will categorize it. And that will have an influence on where that website sits in the search engine results pages. But a big chunk of it is also like your EEAT principles now. So it's how Google ranks the authority of it, the expertise, the trust signals, and backlinks form a part of that. So Google will look at the links that are pointing to that particular website, and it will look at the relevancy of them, the authority of them, and it sees those links as little like votes of confidence almost. So therefore, in order to get that, it's very, very, I guess, difficult to do that naturally, which is kind of where PR tactics come in. Like 10 years ago, paying for links was common. Google penalised that now, and that's really bad practice.
I never did that.
Yeah.
No. Don't know what you're on about.
Yeah. But the thing is that
paying for links, then paying to clean it up.
Yeah. Expensive as well, I bet. But obviously the industry has evolved so much that even the tactics of how we do digital PR has changed, in that big creative games, for example, were like a link building tactic at one point, which still work to this day, but it changed to a lot of like survey data, which again kind of like fell out of favor. It's quite like trend based, quite cyclical on what journalists want, but ultimately it's earned media. And I think you acquire links by creating some sort of story or some sort of narrative that like earns that link from whether it's The Guardian or it's a really relevant publication to whatever business you operate in.
It was really interesting. I think it was 2013 when links and buying links was pretty much eradicated by Google. Was it Matt Cutts, the Grim Reaper, that used to ruin every SEO's day? I thought then it massively played into the hands of PR agencies, and you saw these kind of pure play SEO agencies starting to really struggle because they didn't have the creativity and the thought process maybe at that point to gain those links, and PR agencies had those relationships already, and they really stole quite a big piece of the pie there. How do you see the merging of all these agencies coming together? Because I always think the SEO agency then started getting people that could do PR and vice versa, and then they also started getting people that could do content. That was another really important bit, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The creativity and being able to do the interactive infographics.
Yeah, we've recently decided, internally to change our setup to ensure that we're set up more like that as well, haven't we? So why is that important that you have an organic offering rather than a PR or an SEO offering?
I think because it doesn't make sense now to not integrate both those channels, as in there will be communications goals. If you own any business, you will have some form of brand and then therefore some form of brand goal. And if you operate online, and even if you don't solely operate online, you will have some sort of online presence where your search performance, your organic performance is really, really important in order to gain customers, gain visibility and all things like that. So really, the smart thing to do is to make sure that those services work in tandem with each other. You can still convey a key brand message and make sure that whatever you're doing works really well for search, including specific keywords or targeting certain subdomains of the website, or making sure that coverage you receive is linked or linked from relevant publications and stuff like that. It doesn't necessarily make sense to not try and be that efficient, I don't think. I think even though there's, like you said, a lot of pure play PR agencies and a lot of digital agencies, SEO agencies, I still think there's a big void in the middle where people, brands want both done really well, and there's still kind of a lack of that service, I think, which I kind of thought would have snowballed a little bit more than it probably has. But I think they are two different skill sets, and I think it's only as the industry has evolved that people are really savvy PRs, understand the media, understand what is working for online journalism right now, and also have a really solid understanding of SEO, organic performance and stuff like that.
I remember mention optimization and people trying to go out and turn articles into links, and I always thought that was really hard, and I felt very sorry for the people trying to do that. How would you always ensure a digital PR campaign ended up having one of those key KPIs, which is the authority and the link going back to the site?
I think it has to be, there's a couple of ways really. I think it has to have a reason for not just a journalist, but whoever is, I guess, going to be creating that content on behalf of the site that you want it from, has to have a reason to link. So whether it's going back to just look at a piece of creative on the website just because it's really fucking cool, or it's really compelling research which you can't convey in a news article or a press release, so there it kind of has to go and be dissected further. And then also I think it's understanding what what readers want at that point as well. So it's not just about, okay, right, we're a brand, we've done this, let's go and just fire this news off to every publication we can find that's relevant because they'll cover it. That's not how journalism works. It's understanding that these journalists are writing for a specific subsection of people, whether it's a super niche as, I don't know, bricklayers today or something. They're writing for people that really want to know about bricks. Or it's someone that's writing for a national where their demographic of readers is really, really wide. You've kind of got to understand that in their mind, they will only write things they know are going to get read and are going to get engaged with. So how can you as a brand think of something that then inserts whatever you're trying to do into that topic or conversation or theme, I guess?
Would you say PR is the bridge between organic and brand?
Yeah.
And if it is, why? How?
I think it is, and I think especially digital PR, especially because I think a lot of brands still, like I said, treat them very, very separately. As in, you have traditional brand teams or comms teams where they've got a brand message they want to convey. They've got a certain subsection of people they want to either convert into customers or they want to appeal to as existing customers. And then your organic teams, I guess, are a lot traditionally more tech focused. There's a lot of work that goes into maintaining the quality of the website and the content that's on there and all that kind of thing. Whereas PR sits in the middle because a digital PR sits in the middle because you are creating activity that works for you as a brand. You can target specific people by the publications or the websites or the multimedia channels you're getting in. And then on the organic side, it's making sure that, okay, if we do execute something that is digital only, whether it's creating, I don't know, a landing page with content on it, or if we do go and sort of go the whole hog and float something down the Thames for news coverage, we still want to make sure that news coverage that we're going to get off that big in real life stunt, the publications are going to link back to the website, link back to a specific page that's hosted under the right subdomain that's going to have the most impact. And it's just connecting those dots, I think. And I think a lot of the times brand teams will have a goal, organic teams will have a goal. Ultimately, the goal is usually make more money, make more profit, bring in more customers. So working closer together is usually a more efficient way to do it.
So you mentioned there, make more money, make more profit. How do you measure that? How do you measure that ROI of or traditional PR or even digital PR as well?
I think the beauty of digital PR is if you're striving for like linked coverage, by getting that link, it means there's so much more analysis you can do off any coverage you get. So like years ago, it's like AVE was like advertising value equivalent, was like what PRs would say, oh, we've got X amount of column inches in a story. Yeah. And it's like, oh, a similar size ad in the Mail would cost X thousand, which it means nothing really. Like it was in a time where it was difficult to measure. So PRs needed something. But I think now with being able to get a link, if you're then sat in your like back-end analytics and you go, okay, this is fantastic. You've launched a small fashion e-com brand. We've just got a link in Grazia. That's amazing. We've never been in a publication like that. Grazia's got huge readership. Millions of people buy Grazia. Millions of people are going to have read it. And then you also managed to get a link in, I don't know, a really small niche publication that just writes about sustainable female fashion. It only has an estimated readership of like 1,000 people a month. So if you just compare the two on that estimate, Grazia's done so much more for that brand. If you look at the traffic that comes through, you will be able to see, all right, well, we got in Grazia, which on the surface you think, amazing. Only 3 people came through from that article and no one bought anything. But this sustainable niche site, because you might be selling something that's really akin to what that readership wants, all right, it might only have been seen by 1,000 people, but 300 of them came through, 80 of them bought something, and it's made you X amount, 100 quid revenue. And you can track all that just because that piece of coverage has a link that you can then see the traffic coming through. So you can say that on the surface, the board at that business might be like, amazing, we've got Grazia, that was a real dream publication for us. And that's amazing. Like, you should still celebrate that. It's a good
vanity metric.
Yeah, it's a good vanity metric and it's a good win. Like, I love it when I've got clients on, The Guardian or Forbes or whatever. But when you actually boil down to it, you can build a really good picture of what's actually having a financial impact on that business. We can still strive to get those kind of placements and links because from an SEO perspective, the authority is a benefit. But actually, if you're looking at like cold hard cash, it might be these smaller niche sites where actually you've got a really consolidated audience, it's coming through and it's converting. So it makes sense financially to do both of those things.
And it chimes through with SEO, doesn't it, as well? The long tail kind of more intense searches, there's less of them, but they typically convert a lot better.
Yeah. And that's the thing, it's like you might think, oh, well, we need to only do PR activity that is really product focused. So we just want to do activity that places a specific product into a listicle style article, for example. So if you are selling dresses and Hello Magazine do a roundup of the best summer dresses, you'd be like, we need to make sure our product's in there. But actually, if you have a wider brand messaging, the internal brand team are making massive strides to be seen as more sustainable and talk about like the impact they're having on the planet, you could do a campaign about sustainability, or you could do some sort of stunt where you create a dress out of bin bags or whatever it might be, and something that feels press-worthy. It's a little bit far removed from literally just getting your specific product in front of an audience. But then if people are searching, what's the best sustainable option for me for summer fashion this year, and you're starting to rank for those kind of things, which might not have ever been an intention, but you're getting traffic and an audience through that traditionally might have been harder to target through other channels, I think.
Why is it important to demonstrate ROI? We've obviously discussed how you measure it, but now more than ever, why is it important to demonstrate it?
I think because cost of living. I think money is tight on an individual basis, and for brands, marketing is usually the first pot of money that gets looked at in any business when cuts need to happen or efficiencies need to be made. And like you were saying, John, like PR traditionally is, it's hard to measure, so let's, we don't need to spend X amount of money on that activation because it's a waste of money. But if you can demonstrate that actually one of your key goals is that you are a business with a saturated audience, you have potentially gone to everyone relevant that would buy from you, so you need to really think about how you expand your audiences. Digital PR is a fantastic channel in which to do that and to test that on potentially like a less risky way than if you were pumping loads of money into a TV ad or even pumping loads of money into paid media spend, for example. It allows you to kind of get creative with brand teams and with search, but be able to really quickly see the return on investment from that. So if we have done some sort of digital PR activity, we realize that getting in Grazia, getting in Cosmopolitan, all these big, kind of magazines that as a brand you think 100% we're going to get people interested from there. No one's coming through and converting, and you were about to, put ad spend into some of those channels, then you're ultimately making more strategic decisions that are more cost effective as well. And it's just about understanding that, and it can really help formulate what your brand and comms teams are doing at the same time, I think.
I'm going to put you on the spot here. What is your best example of a digital PR campaign that you just look at and think they've hit the nail on the head there? They've done that perfectly.
It's going to sound sort of like selfish because it's what I sort of was involved in. But not blowing my own trumpet or anything.
The best digital PR campaign ever. Well, I did this thing a few months ago.
Literally. But it's a really good example because it shows that it doesn't have to be huge, like big activations or whatever. It's that story and narrative driven that works really well. So it was a couple of, I think it was about I can't remember now, previous agency, a couple of years ago, working with a client that was like an online language learning platform. So if you wanted to take Spanish lessons, but like virtually because you didn't want to do it locally or wherever, you could go on there, you could get a Spanish tutor, you could get a French tutor, you could get whatever. And there was a member of my team at the time who just was a massive Marvel fan. She just was obsessed with Marvel movies and whatever. And there was the Eternals movie that came out, and it had the first deaf superhero in it. The actress was deaf, I think, and she was the first like Marvel deaf superhero. And she was like, what if we did something or just looked at some sort of data to see? The movie was getting premiered on the Friday. Wonder if there's any impact that that movie and that character's going to have on people wanting to learn sign language, because sign language was a course that this client offered.
Right, okay.
So over the weekend, we literally just looked at like Google Trends data, which is like completely free platform, takes 10 minutes. And we saw that like key searches like how to learn sign language courses, I think it was American Sign Language, had like absolutely shot up in demand over the course of the weekend. So on the Monday morning, we just like packaged that up with a comment from the client. It was the most low effort thing ever. And it just went everywhere. Did really, really well with like national press, movie press, and then the actors themselves from the Marvel movie were tweeting about it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was like, I think she's called Lauren Ridloff, who is the actress that played the deaf superhero. I think it was like the Independent article, she was like retweeting it like, feel great to be involved in something that's obviously had a really positive impact.
That's amazing.
And it just did really well. And for a client that is like an online language learning platform, if a week before we would have said you will have A-list stars tweeting about your brand, your name, they'd have been like, oh, and it was something that was just an idea, and it was like a well-timed idea, and it's just about making those connections, but also understanding that it's not just a brand thing. Because I think the brand, if you went to a brand team with something like that, they might think, oh, well, that feels really irrelevant. Why would we talk about a Marvel movie? But when you actually looked at it and looked at like the search impact and the direct impact that had on their service, it was really, really relevant. And it's just an example. Like, wheel out a lot, but it's a good one, I think. Like, and it just shows the impact you can have.
Yeah, absolutely. Creative technology and the role it plays in digital PR. I think we could probably have a whole podcast about it.
And we will.
I'm not doing anything this week.
Record number 2 straight after. But I'd love to know where you think creative tech plays a role in digital PR and how you see that developing further.
I think it's all about kind of the new ways in which to activate stuff. So I think digital PR, and anyone that works in digital PR will know about like the dream job. They'll know about the survey. They'll know about all these formats that have kind of been done and then done again and then done again and kind of done to death, but they still work. So there's nothing wrong with doing a dream job campaign. So you'll have seen Greggs, this is an example, but like Greggs are now going to pay 20 grand a year for a pasty tester or something. It's just a really good, funny, lighthearted, low risk story that brands did for ages to drive links from like national publications and whatever. And they still work to this day. There's some really good ones. There's some naff ones. It's just a good
format. Was it the head of Mischief? Was it Paddy Power?
Yeah. All stuff like that. I think that was one of the first ones, to be fair. But these formats, they get used and used again until the point where a couple of years ago, it might have got you hundreds of links. Now it might get you 5. So I think creative technology and the way in which we consume stuff is always a really good vehicle of like, it's not just thinking about what topics people are talking about, but it's how we're like consuming content. So now, like, for example, AI, not that people are wanting to, I don't know, read loads of AI content, but it's a topic that everyone is talking about. Everyone's saying, how's it going to affect whatever industry they're in? It's interesting. There's just a vested interest. So it's like, okay, from a digital PR perspective, can we not only talk about that topic if it's relevant to the brand? Is there a way that we could create something using it? Because that is a format at the moment that journalists love, the readers of those publications love. So I think with that kind of creative tech, if we're building something digital, whether it was a game or a tool or a metaverse experience or whatever it might be, or some sort of like AI experience, it's all about like that innovation. And it's like we're trying to innovate in the way which people are consuming content. Like a couple of years ago, if you would have said, oh, let's create a campaign and then we'll build it in AI and it will make it an experience for people, I'd have been like, what? Like, why is that? Who's going to read about that? That seems so convoluted. But now there's a massive thirst. There's a whole niche. There's publications that have sprung up in the past couple of years which would cover that story because it's super relevant and it's a super innovative way of doing something. But
it's absolutely the way to get the link,
yeah,
isn't it?
Yeah,
because you've almost got to go to see it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's exactly it as well. I think that's why like creative, however creative, even if it's just like some amazing designs, illustrations that you've done to support a campaign, if it's a literal metaverse experience that's like out of this world, it has to be seen to be believed, and that's a great reason for a journalist or whoever to link. Because
it gives longevity, doesn't it? As well, you know, I think we talked the other day about a campaign, and it was on, and it was brilliant, but they never left anything that would keep it relevant and keep the story going. That longevity too, I think it almost expands that out, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think if you've built something and then hosted it online, even if it's a blog, all the way to that kind of huge digital asset, whatever it might be, you find that you can obviously push it to press to get that initial, I guess, like spike of activity and coverage, but then people will passively find it because you might rank for long tail keywords you'd never expect it to, or it gets revisited again if there's something in the news that suddenly makes it relevant. Whereas I guess more traditional PR, even though still has a place for loads of different reasons, if you are doing a in real life stunt for one day only in central London, it'll get written about, but the life cycle of that campaign and that impact lives and dies in that one day almost.
It's going to be a chip wrapper the next day.
Literally.
Isn't it?
It literally will.
Or are you allowed to do that anymore? I'm not sure if you can.
What, serve chips in the old newspaper? Don't think so.
Health and safety. Ruined everything.
Yeah, it used to make it taste better, didn't it? Let's be honest. The ink definitely improved the flavour. What would you say are the biggest barriers to brands getting an ROI?
I think often it's being too wrapped up in their own perception of the brand. And I think a lot of the time there'll be loads of fantastic ideas, whether you're a PR person that's in-house, whether you're a brand working with an agency, whether you're a freelancer, however the setup is, there'll be 1,000,001 ideas that you think, oh, that's quite daring, like that could be a really good story. But then someone's like, it doesn't fit with the brand. We've got brand guidelines, goes against it. Or it's too much of a risk versus we're not sure on the reward. But I think if you start to really understand the channels and the areas of the internet press that are already sort of showing you that return on investment. So if you know that your audience is coming through from a specific sector of the press, or even if you know that they're coming through from particular channels across social or whatever it might be, and you start to really play on what do people enjoy to consume in those areas on those channels, you can start to see and build that. I think often there'll be really, really good ideas that get too wrapped up in would we as a brand do this? Maybe not. And it starts to dilute and dilute and dilute. And then when we talk about like linkability, it might go from right, let's do it. Let's just build this big creative idea, this big digital asset, or let's do that stunt. And then it might dilute to something slightly safer, something less risky in terms of cost or build or time.
Yeah.
And then ultimately it's a story that might do well, but there's not a reason to link back. So you've got a brand mention, which you then can't measure as well. And it's that kind of thinking, I guess, that sometimes can stand in the way.
So we touched on my old FD. Hopefully you're not listening, Dave Wilson.
He's definitely not. Let's be honest.
Exactly. Yeah, there's about 3 people there.
He hates PR. He hates PR. He's definitely not listening to this podcast.
I'm going to put him off then.
But we talk about key metrics. If I was to persuade my FD not to pull my budget, what are the metrics you'd advise me to be recording and how I could prove that it wouldn't be a good idea to do it?
I'd definitely say there's like a 3-pronged approach with it, really. You can measure your key like brand metrics, your organic metrics, and then those real like actionable, almost like financial metrics from it. So any PR coverage that you get, whether it's traditional or digital, you will measure like the amount of media placements you've got just to have them. But it's like how you start to then go granular. So what percentage of that is linked? What type of link are they? A follow link is more valuable, up for debate for some people, but is more valuable from an SEO perspective. So that's going to have a better impact on organic rankings. And then of those links, can we start to look at the traffic that's coming through? And therefore, from the traffic that's coming through, how many of those are converting? Can we track how they're engaging or interacting with the site? Do we notice that there's a particular pattern of behavior? All that kind of thing. And it can all these things then start to give you insight, not just on, where we've got a brand mention in a publication, but actually the people that are coming through to your brand or business and how they're interacting with it. And it's the same then with like search behavior. So kind of going back to that example I was on about like, if it was like sustainable fashion, if we see that we've done a campaign, we're trying to measure if that's actually had an impact on our brand and how people are perceiving our brand. Any coverage we can get, we can look at sentiment. So we can look at how they might be talking about it on social media. What sentiment, like, has it got behind it? Of all the coverage that we've landed, like we've got the tools in-house where we can say, the 80% of people reacted positively to that. They reacted with laughter. They reacted with anger. You can really get a picture of if you've done something and it might not have gone the right way, which is better knowing that sooner rather than later. And then also you can look at like branded search as well. So if you are doing a campaign around sustainability and you're a fashion brand, you're not necessarily sure if it's had that impact, but you're seeing from your Google Search Console that people are finding you through sustainable summer fashion. You know that we've improved maybe traffic coming through those kind of long tail keywords. And if you're getting your brand name plus sustainable, that campaign or that activity has obviously had some sort of impact, because people have that perception of you that's increased compared to before that activity. So it kind of all ties into one, but you can really start to build a picture of what it's done to the brand, what it's done from just a pure play SEO perspective about the quality of the links, if you've changed in positions against competitors, and then also that literal like financial gain, especially if you are a business that is, I guess, like a simple setup, like an e-commerce business, where you can literally see if people are coming through buying your product and where they've come from, and then it then you build off that. So if you see that, okay, we know that we always convert when we are in these publications, and your brand team and the brand work you're doing goes completely against that, it's kind of like, well, what are the insights behind that branding decision? Actually, we've got cold, hard numbers here that show every time we talk about or do something and it lands in these publications about sustainability, people buy from us. If we're wanting to go into this really, luxury fashion space, is that the best investment? Like, you can start to just have a lot more of a critical eye on it, I think, which works really well.
Brilliant. Cool. Nice
fascinating. We could talk for hours. It's been brilliant chatting today, Alex, and looking forward to getting you back on the next podcast that we do. I think we can.
Where can people find you online if they want to find you?
Yeah, at Twitter, Alex Hickson PR, and on LinkedIn. I think I've got the full title on there. I think it's Alexander Hickson. But yeah,
good stuff. And yourself, John? Where can people find you?
In the pub.
You make that joke every episode. You can't just keep doing that. It's going to get boring soon.
No. I'm on a serious note, not in the pub. No, you can find me on Instagram, Johnny B, on Instagram, and also on LinkedIn.
Your Instagram's not that. Your Instagram's John TB.
I know. I don't want anyone
people to
following
find it.
Even though you're right.
Anyway, come to me for social media.
Find me on LinkedIn, Adam Britton. Nice one, Alex. Nice one. Cheers for coming in.
Cheers. No worries.
Cheers for coming in. This is where you work.
Yeah. I was here anyway.
Thanks for coming in. You get paid to come here. I'm not fucking thanking you again. Nice one, mate. See you soon.
Yeah.